After studying this module, you shall be able to know about the medico-legal aspects of injury, to learn about the various sections under Indian Penal Code as applicable to the offences against the human body, what is homicide and the grievous injuries. Medico-legal aspects of injury. To introduce you the topic, Benjamin Franklin has said much earlier, write your injuries in dust and your benefits in marble. As various definition, classification and general description has already been covered in other modules, it is very important to know regarding the various medico-legal aspects of the injuries as well. Here we will discuss one by one. The most important, or you can say the most the dreaded one, is the homicide. Homicide is killing of one human being by another human being. It can be classified under two categories, lawful homicide and unlawful homicide. The lawful homicide can be further divided into the justifiable ones and the excusable ones. Two categories, whereas the unlawful homicide can be divided into further four categories, that is culpable homicide amounting to murder, what has been defined under section 299 IPC, then the 300 IPC which defines murder, and then not amounting to murder, that is defined under section 304 IPC, and then rash or negligent act which has been defined under 304A IPC. Now coming on to the justifiable homicide under the category of lawful homicide. When the homicide is justified under the circumstances leading to killing of the person, we shall be dealing with those circumstances. What are those? Judicial execution for the administration of justice as a form of capital punishment. Then for maintaining justice, as in suppressing riots or law-abiding officers killing an assailant who is shooting at him, so as a defense. Then a woman who kills a person who attempts to rape her. So these three are justifiable homicide. Then the other category is the excusable homicide. A homicide can be excused when the person committing the homicide is at fault to some degree, but the degree of fault is not enough to constitute a culpable homicide. So it is excusable. I will tell you the conditions where it will be. When the person has got no other option but to kill, otherwise he will be killed. Then a homicide without mens rea, that is the guilty mind, as happens when a person is insane or a mentally ill person or a child who is below 7 years of age, or death following a lawful operation, that is also excusable. Usually these phrases do not appear very frequently in Indian law, but sometimes the question arises. Then the second category is the unlawful homicide. Under unlawful homicide, the culpable homicide which has been defined under section 299 IPC. A person is said to have committed culpable homicide when he is causing death to another person by doing an act falling under any of these three categories, that is with the intention of causing death. Second is the with the intention of causing of such bodily harm which is likely to cause death. And third, with the knowledge that such act is likely to cause death. So these are the three clauses or three categories of the culpable homicide, either of these three. The explanation of these 299 IPC of these three conditions, as I told, is first, when the death is caused by causing such bodily injury, the person deemed to have caused death, although the same death could have been prevented by using skillful treatment, or when a person causes bodily injury to another person who is suffering from a pre-existing disease, deformity or disorder which has accelerated the death of the person, and this infirmity can be temporary or permanent. And third is when the death of an infant, if any part of the infant is brought forth during birth, will amount to culpable homicide to cause death of that living child, though the infant may not have been completely born. That was under section 299 IPC. Then murder, which has been defined under section 300 IPC. The culpable homicide becomes murder when either of falling under any of these following four categories. The act which causes death is caused by the intention of causing death, that is the mens rea, or the essence of committing crime is present. When it is done in order to cause such bodily injury that the offender knows such injuries are likely to cause death, that is the second circumstances. Third is when it is done to cause such bodily injury which is sufficient to cause death in the ordinary course of nature. And the fourth one, when the person committing the act knows that it is so immediately dangerous that in all probabilities it will cause death or likely to cause that, and commits such act without any excuse. Then the third category or the separate category is the culpable homicide not amounting to murder. The culpable homicide does not amount to murder if the act or death is done by falling under any of the five categories, that is under sudden and grave provocation, for carrying out public justice, done in good faith of the right of defending person or property, which has been defined further under from section 96 to 106 IPCs, and without any premeditation or planning or mens rea, what we called as, or when the person is above 18 years and takes the risk of death with his own consent, as happens during the surgical operations. To illustrate further these situations, I will quote you examples. If during a quarrel, death of a person occurs due to sudden myocardial infarction or ruptured aneurysm or any such fatal natural cause, and it can be proved by autopsy that death has occurred entirely because of the natural cause and the infliction of the injuries did not play any role in any way, whether immediately or remotely, in the death of the victim, then the person will not be responsible. In these cases, death could have occurred at the same time or same place, whether there was a quarrel or not. Death may occur due to a slight injury over an already diseased organ, as in fatty degeneration of heart, any pre-existing heart disease, duodenal ulcer, ulcerative colitis, enlarged spleen, hydatid cyst, disseminated sclerosis, or acceleration of progress of an already fatal illness that may occur following an injury. In all such cases, if the injury accelerates the process of dying or precipitates the death, the assailant will not be held responsible for the death only if he can prove that he had no intention of killing the victim, that he did not know regarding the possible existence of the disease, or the same injury would not have caused death in a healthy person. Under such circumstances, he will be charged either for a simple injury or grievous injury. Thus, to substantiate the charge of murder or culpable homicide, it is necessary to prove that the injuries inflicted upon the body are the actual cause of death, and that the act was committed with the intention of causing such bodily injury that the offender knew that it is sufficient or likely to cause death in ordinary course of nature. If these conditions are not fulfilled, then the offender can be punished under culpable homicide not amounting to murder, or for a grievous or simple injury, but not for the murder under section 300. A bodily injury which is likely to cause death. Injury which poses grave danger to life and is not merely possible but is likely to cause death because of the severity of the injuries and the structures involved. The injuries would not have caused death in a person having a sound health. However, when the injuries are inflicted upon a person suffering from pre-existing fatal disease, In such case, the injuries are likely to cause death in the ordinary course of nature. Here, it is important to prove that the assailant had prior knowledge regarding the existence of such disease condition, and owing to such condition, the injuries inflicted is likely to cause death of the person. A bodily injury which is sufficient to cause death in the ordinary course of nature. Let's illustrate this one. The injuries itself inflicted cause a very probable death. The death must be a result of direct infliction of the injury and not due to any precipitating factor or any pre-existing conditions. Thus, the injury sustained is itself sufficient to cause death in the ordinary course of nature, and this sufficiency is the high probability of the death. For example, stab injury causing rupture of the heart, or stab injury or abdomen causing hemorrhagic shock, injury to the large blood vessels, severe injury to brain and spinal cord, smothering, drowning, homicidal hanging, administration of poison, penetrating wounds of vital organs by projectiles of firearms. Thus, the injury is culpable homicide if the injuries are likely to cause death in the ordinary course of nature, and it is murder if the injury sustained is sufficient to cause death in the ordinary course of nature. A very thin line demarcates the two and is appreciable. Section 302 IPC, as we all know very commonly, it deals with the punishment for murder, which defines the capital punishment or imprisonment for life with fine. Section 303 IPC, this defines punishment for murder of a life convict, which is also punishable by a death sentence. Then section 304 IPC, this defines punishment for culpable homicide not amounting to murder. In this case, imprisonment for life up to 10 years and with or without fine, provided that if the death is caused to a girl or woman, the accused committing such act shall be punished with imprisonment for whole life and shall be liable to pay fine which may extend up to rupees 2 lakhs. Section 304A IPC, it defines whosoever causes death of a person by doing rash and negligent act not amounting to culpable homicide shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 2 years or with fine. For example, death due to road traffic accidents, death due to medical negligence, all these are dealt under section 304A IPC. Then section 304B IPC, which deals with the dowry death, that is, death of a married lady within 7 years of marriage, where the death of woman has occurred by any burn or bodily injury or occurs otherwise than under normal circumstances within 7 years of marriage, and it is shown that soon before her death she was subjected to cruelty or harassment by husband or any relative of her husband or in connection with any demand for dowry. Such death shall be called as dowry deaths. And whoever commits dowry death shall be punished with imprisonment of not less than 10 years, but which may extend up to the life imprisonment. The inquest should be done by the executive magistrate and not by the police in these cases under 304B. And in these cases, autopsy is carried out by board of minimum 2 doctors when the allegation of dowry death is there. Section 305 deals with the abatement of suicide of a child or a mentally ill person and again is punishable with 10 years of imprisonment. Section 306 IPC, this deals with the abatement of suicide. If any person commits suicide, whoever shall abet the commission of such act shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 10 years and shall be liable to fine. There must be an instigation, cooperation or intentional assistance given to the person for committing the act. Then section 307 IPC, this deals with the attempt to commit murder and it is punishable with 10 years of imprisonment. Section 308 IPC, this deals with the attempt to commit culpable homicide and again is punishable with the imprisonment up to 10 years. Section 309 IPC, this deals with the attempt to commit suicide. So, whoever attempts to commit suicide and does any act towards the commission of such offence is punished with the simple imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 1 year with fine or with both. So if the person has attempted to commit suicide and by the way is unable to complete his suicide, can be punishable for 1 year. Section 319 IPC. This defines hurt as any bodily pain, disease or infirmity caused to any person, and it does not include mental pain. Then one of the very common, or you can say commonest one, which we deal with the medico legal circumstances is section 320 IPC, which deals with the grievous injuries. There are 8 clauses of grievous injuries. First, emasculation, then permanent privation of sight of either eye, then permanent privation of hearing of either ear, then privation of any member or joint, then destruction of permanent impairment of power of any member or joint, then permanent disfiguration of head or face, then fracture or dislocation of bone or tooth, and the last clause is any hurt which endangers life or which causes the victim to be in severe bodily pain so that he is unable to follow his normal ordinary pursuits for a minimum continuous period of 20 days. Now to illustrate further all these conditions one by one. The emasculation. The emasculation means depriving a male of the masculine vigor, and this may happen by many ways like fracture of the pelvis, which causes the injury to the parasympathetic system, the fracture is spine at the level of first lumbar to the sacral segments of the spinal cord, or even this amputation of penis or scrotum, and this may result to impotence. This will be covered under the first clause of the grievous injury. So this is not applicable to the females. Then second is the permanent privation of sight of either eye. A permanent deprivation of a person of sight of eye not only deprives the person of a vital organ but also disfigures the person. It can be caused by gouging out the eye, the poking eyes, the pouring chemical over the eyes, all these. A simple abrasion over the cornea can lead to permanent privation of sight of that eye, and this is also considered to be grievous. But permanent loss does not mean it is incurable. But even if due to surgical intervention, it is, you can say, get back to the normalcy, still it will be considered as grievous. Then third clause, that is the permanent privation of hearing of either ear. This is permanently depriving a person of hearing of either any of the ear. Injuries like blow on the ear or head or causing damage to the tympanic membrane or auditory nerves, or any blast injuries causing rupture of the tympanic membrane, pouring hot liquids, this can lead to the permanent loss of hearing. Then the privation of any member or joint. The term member means any organ or a limb being part of man which is capable of performing its individual and distinct action. This includes eyes, ear, mouth, nose, hands, finger, feet. A permanent privation of any organ or part of man having an individual function is considered to be a grievous one. Then there is destruction or permanent impairment of power of any member of joint. A deprivation of the function of any of the power of any member or joint, this makes a person lifelong crippled and defenseless, thereby degrading the quality of life of that person. In ordinary course of life, normal functioning of the members and joints are very essential for routine and normal functioning of a human life. Any destruction or permanent impairment of power is considered as grievous injuries. Then sixth clause is the permanent disfiguration of head or face. In this section, the word disfigure means to cause external injuries which detracts from his personal appearance but does not weaken him. For example, permanent scar on the face of an actress or a cut on the face of a young unmarried girl leaving scarred for life. Or as we see the cases of acid throwing, vitriol age. Then fracture or dislocation of bone or tooth. Any break or breach in the continuity of bone is considered as fracture. It is not necessary for the bone to be completely cut in order to term it as a fracture. The proper X-ray reading is required in order to rule out any hairline fracture and concluding the gravity of the injury. Dislocation also means displacement, and mere looseness of a tooth will not amount to dislocation. It has to be proved that the tooth was not originally loose before the injury and there was fracture and dislocation from the normal anatomical position only after the injury has occurred. In the last clause, any hurt which endangers life or which causes the person to be in severe bodily pain and unable to follow his ordinary pursuits for a period of 20 days. Some injuries which do not follow any of the mentioned 7 clauses are covered under this 8th clause of the grievous hurt. A wound may cause severe bodily pain or may endanger life, but may not cause any fracture, dislocation, emasculation or any privation. Thus, the injuries which are not covered under those 7 clauses are covered under this. It can be further subdivided into these 3. You can say the 3 parts, that is any hurt which endangers life. Let's elaborate it further. Any injury which puts the life of the injured person at risk is called injury endangering the life. An injury caused over a vital part of the body cannot be called grievous under this section until unless the dimension of the injuries and effects are such that the doctor is of the opinion that it actually endangers life. Thus, if life of a person is not endangered, then it is not considered to be grievous in nature. The second subclause of this is the dangerous injuries. They are those which pose imminent danger to life, either by involvement of the important organs or structures or by covering the extensive area of the body. Without any surgical aid, these injuries may prove fatal. The concept of deeming an injury dangerous to life depends upon the attending physician who is preparing the injury report or the MLC, and the concept of injury dangerous to life is not very precise. Thus, the medical witness should place all the relevant data, namely the nature of the injury, the extent of the injury, the kind of weapon, which part of the body is involved, dimensions of the injury, whether simple or grievous, in the injury report in order to give the expert opinion. Then third subclause, that is any hurt which causes the victim to be in severe bodily pain or unable to follow his ordinary pursuits for a period of 20 days. The length and duration of time of which the person was in severe bodily pain or is incapacitated or unable to follow the ordinary pursuit for a 20 days period is actually a very subjective parameter and a defective criteria. It is very difficult to prove that the person is in severe bodily pain, but it is very easy to prove that person was unable to follow his ordinary pursuits for a period of 20 days. Hence, ordinary pursuits are day-to-day activities of life which makes livelihood easy, like eating food, taking bath, going to toilet, combing hair, buttoning shirt, all these. A mere stay in hospital for a period of 20 days does not make it a grievous wound until unless the injury endangers life or causes severe bodily pain or makes the person unable to follow these what I have enumerated just. However, in case of hurt, the duty of the medical witness is only to describe the facts. The gravity of the injury, whether simple or grievous, that is described in the injury report, is only to guide the investigating police officer for the sake of investigation. It is the court ultimately who decides whether the injury is simple or grievous. To define simple injury, the simple injury is the one which is neither extensive nor serious and which heals rapidly. So, we have covered the grievous injuries, we have covered the extensive injuries. So, what is left is the simple injuries. Dangerous weapon. So, we should not confuse dangerous injuries with the dangerous weapon. The dangerous weapons or means include any instrument for shooting, stabbing or cutting, or any instrument which is used as a weapon of offense and is likely to cause death. Fire or any heated substance, poison or any corrosive substance, explosive substance or any substance which is harmful to the human body to inhale, swallow or to receive into the blood or by means of any animal. Then section 321 IPC, which deals with the voluntary causing hurt. Section 322 IPC causes voluntary causing grievous hurt. 323 deals with the punishment for voluntary causing hurt, and that defines imprisonment up to 2 years or with fine up to 1000 rupees or both. The section 324 IPC deals with the voluntary causing hurt by dangerous weapon or means, and here the imprisonment is enhanced to 3 years. 325 IPC deals with the punishment for voluntary causing grievous hurt, and here the imprisonment for a term may exceed up to 7 years along with the fine. Section 326 IPC deals with the voluntary causing grievous hurt by dangerous weapon or means, and here the imprisonment up to 10 years and with fine. In this particular 326 IPC, after the Nirbhaya rape Kand, there are recent amendments which have been added as section 326A and 326B that deals specifically with the vitriolage, that is throwing of acid over the face of a girl or female. They are added upon this. Section 328 IPC deals with the voluntary causing hurt by poison with intention, and here the imprisonment for a period of 10 years can be awarded. 340 IPC deals with the wrongful confinement. 342 IPC deals with the punishment for this, which can be up to 1 year. 351 IPC defines the assault as any offer or threat or attempt to apply force to body of another in a hostile manner, and the battery is a successful assault. Section 352 to 358, they deal with the punishment for various types of assault, and here the sexual assault has also been added under 354 IPC, which has been you can say defined, upgraded after Nirbhaya Kand, which I will take when I will deal with the sexual offences. Section 498A IPC, whoever being the husband or the relative of the husband of the woman subjects such woman to cruelty shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years and shall be liable to pay fine. Cruelty has been defined as any willful conduct which drives the woman to commit suicide or grave mental or physical injury to her or harassment of the woman with a view to coerce her for dowry. These are the various sections which are related with the offences against the human body. To summarize this topic of medico-legal aspects of injury, homicide is killing of one human being by another human being. A homicide is excusable when one committing the homicide is at fault to some degree, but the degree of fault is not enough to constitute a culpable homicide. A culpable homicide becomes murder when the act which causes death is caused by the intention of causing death. Injuries like blow on the ear or head or causing damage to tympanic membrane or auditory nerves, or any blast injuries causing rupture of tympanic membrane, pouring hot liquids, etc. can lead to permanent loss of hearing and thereby producing grievous injuries. In ordinary course of life, normal functioning of the membrane and joints are very essential for routine and normal functioning of a human life. Any destruction or permanent impairment of power is considered as grievous injuries. Any injury which puts the life of the injured person at risk is called injury endangering life.